It is June 29, 2025, and this is episode 21. And I was going to talk briefly about our pension liability once again. I actually wrote an op-ed about our pension liability back in, let's see, when was it? I think it was in February. It was December of 2024. And it was kind of triggered by the surplus. The city at that point had a $64 million surplus, and they were all about how to spend that money. And it occurred to me that the Cincinnati's Futures Commission, which issued their report in June of 2024, actually a year ago, nothing's been done about it or with it. But that was just 6 months earlier, and it said the biggest threat, or the most concerning threat, I think is what the Futures Commission report said, to the city was its pension liability, which means that the funding level, or the funding ratio for the pension plan, and this is the pension plan that covers the city employees, and from what I understand, it's one of the only standalone pension systems for city employees in the state. But the Futures Commission pointed that out as the number one threat to the city. And I think their basis for that is how expensive the pension fund is, and how it is currently eating itself alive. The revenues, or the receipts for the pension fund, are not sufficient to cover their ongoing benefit and other office expenses or operating expenses. So they have to sell off their assets in order to pay their bills, and that can only go on for so long. So the Futures Commission is correct in raising this as a serious issue, but I can't understand their solution. Their solution is to regionalize the waterworks, and somehow that is going to generate $600 million or something like that, and that can be contributed to the pension liability. Problem solved. except it's not. That would not necessarily solve it. The fooling with the waterworks would require another referendum, and there's no guarantee that their interest in transferring the pension fund to the state, whether the state would even entertain that. So it's a very, very long shot. But meanwhile, the city is doing nothing. They're doing nothing. And what was also interesting about the Futures Commission report is that they completely dismiss the pension trust trustees and their recommendation that I guess they make every year to just increase the incremental payment, employer contributions to the pension plan over time, and they will meet the deadline that has been set by this legal settlement that the city entered into back in 2015. So back in 2015, the city, I guess they were sued or something by some beneficiaries or members of the pension trust, and a schedule was created, or a deadline was created, to get the pension trust fully funded by 2045. So 30 years. The agreement gave them 30 years. And the first 10 years have been squandered. They didn't make any progress in the first 10 years. And so they keep kicking the can down the road as usual. And what's really concerning is that they're not talking about a lot of money. Last year, reporting on the calendar year 23 situation with the pension fund, the trustees recommended that the city increase its contribution 1.1% every year, and so they would increase it 1.1% in 24, and then they would take that would be the new floor. They'd add 1.1% on top of that for 25, etc. And by 2045, which is the legal deadline, they would be over fully funded. They would be at 105%. So that was last year. Well, the only thing the city did is they made a couple of additional payments. For example, with that surplus, a $64 million surplus, which would cover the city's, if they put that entire amount in the pension, that would cover the city's contribution for an entire year. They would have a year up on the liability. But they didn't do that. They contributed a lump sum of $4 million, which is, good. It's helpful, but it's ad hoc. It's a one-time infusion, and so that's not going to cut it. They really need to increase the employer contributions and whatever other payments they make into it. There are two other payments that they make for their early retirement program, and I guess to satisfy some IRS rule or something. So their annual contribution is up in the $60 to $64 million range, with all of that contribution and the other payments. And you're talking about adding another couple $1 million to that. And this city council, they spend a couple $1 million on stuff all the time. So I don't understand why the incremental approach is not being embraced here by the city. It would be very, very simple to do. And what bothers me most is that knowing that we have this liability, the city council is still looking for ways to spend money on things other than their legal obligations. In fact, they are going out now and assuming legal obligations from property owners concerning sidewalk repairs. So I think that was in the last episode we talked about sidewalks. And if the city took over the obligation of repairing all the condemned sidewalks, we estimated that would cost about $2 million. Well, don't you know that that's about the amount of increase that this incremental approach to funding the pension trust, that's about what that would cost. So, but instead of spending that $2 million on this legal obligation, they're going to assume legal obligation and use that $2 million to pay for, private individuals. And I think I mentioned last time that the way the program is set up, well, originally they wanted to use railroad money, and I think we nipped that in the bud somehow. But I was told that they're not using railroad money for the sidewalk repair project. And I can go into all of that, what a bad idea that would be. Primarily because it'd be the only use of railroad money that for all intent and purposes puts railroad money in the pocket of individual property owners or corporate property owners, or however this program is going to work. So none of the other proposed uses of the railroad money are going into people's pocket directly. It's going to contracts. It's going to other uses for street repairs and park facilities and things. It's not going into property owners' sidewalk repairs. So that's different, and that was important for me, because once you open it up, who knows what's going to happen. And that's kind of why I wanted to see the legal opinion that they're not giving me. Anyway, that's the last episode, I think. But as we talk about the pension liability, this year's report, which was just issued, it was submitted by the city manager to the mayor and city council at the last city council meetings before these guys went on their summer break. And hopefully they won't forget about it. But it basically repeats the same recommendations that they included last year, except last year when they suggested that the city increase their employer contribution, their annual employer contribution, by 1.1% every year. The 24 report, which was just submitted, reduces that to 0.08%, or 0.8%. That's what they're talking about now. So they've reduced that, and they're still projecting that if they were to incrementally add to the employer's contribution every year, they would hit the target. They would hit the legal target of full funding by 2045. That seems pretty simple to me. But instead, they're talking about regionalizing the waterworks. It really doesn't make any sense. And the Futures Commission report gives very short shrift to the idea of these incremental contribution increases. But the trustees of the plan, the people responsible for the plan, are saying this is the way to go. So they have 5 recommendations. This is from the new report that was just submitted to the council and the mayor at the last meeting. 5 recommendations. 1, that city council adopt a plan to continue increasing the pension trust employer contribution incrementally on an annual basis to assure full funding in 2045. And that increase in the discussion, it says that currently in the lawsuit or in the legal settlement, the city agreed to contribute 16.25% of the payroll as the employer contribution. So they're recommending in this report that increase 0.8% every year. And that's it. I mean, that's their number one solution. The other potential solution would be to take on more risk in your investments, and that they shot that down. They say the board and the investment consultant believe that taking any more risk would be imprudent. Well, that's not the route you want to go then. And then number 3 is reduce benefits. That would be one way to reduce the cost of the pension trust, cost to the pension trust. And, don't give cost of living increases on, don't factor those in and things like that. That's not a way to go either, especially if you participate in that pension plan. And number 4, issue judgment bonds. So the number 4 solution, so they've rejected number 2. Number 3 is a bad idea to reduce benefits. Number 4 is to go into debt to pay off this existing debt with the liability with the pension plan. And what that would do is give the pension plan money to invest so they could increase their revenues. And the problem with that is that you risk losing money and putting the city in a worse situation. And from what I saw in the research I did, there's been some cities that have tried that in the past, and they've all kind of failed. I didn't see any successful efforts on issuing these judgment bonds. So anyway, that's a bad idea. And then the fifth one is the waterworks thing. And that's a bad idea. So, you know, why doesn't the city council just kick in a couple extra $1 million a year and be done with it? I just don't understand it. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. There is a new report out. It's you can locate it on the calendar page for the city council for the meeting on the 18th. It's part of that agenda packet, and we'll see what happens. But the city council is neglecting this issue big time, and all it's going to do is get worse if they don't address it. And it would be nice if the city came up with some plan to both increase the incremental contribution, and they can find a lot of money in that budget to make these one-time infusions. And that's only going to help. That's only going to help the pension trust in the long run. For example, if you look at how the city maintains reserves, the city has a very high, what do they call it? They call it a, not sustainability. I can't remember the term. But anyway, they've got, it's a stabilization policy. Their financial stabilization policy requires pretty high percentages for their reserves. They have 3 or 4 reserve accounts. And if you look at their balances, it looks like they've got even more money in their reserves than the stabilization policy calls for. Well, they should scrub those reserves, come up with, I don't know, $10 million, put it right into that pension trust. Don't spend it on sidewalks or spend it on, brick and mortar facilities for nonprofit organizations or anything like that. Use it for the 3 big deficits that we've identified so far: the pension trust, the deferred maintenance and infrastructure maintenance, and the vehicle fleet. Spend your extra money on those deficits instead of taking on new liabilities. So that's my, I guess that's a rant. That's my rant for today. And we really have to address this pension liability once and for all. Put it behind us, bite the bullet, and put more money into it so that our employees and our pension recipients or pension participants don't have to continually worry about the pension plan running out of money. So that's it until next time.